Well, hi everyone. This is our inaugural Bate, call it number one, and in a series of Bates. Question tonight is: do the mainstream press and media objectively report on child abuse, paedophilia, and the associated crimes that go with it? We've got a panel tonight, including Hugh. We've got Kirill, Addy, Jake, and Joe. They'll be presenting some evidence first off, and followed by question and answers, and then a sort of discussion. My job here is really to make sure the panelists stay in check and present things in a balanced, open, and frank way. Throughout the process, we'll have polls turned on, which are here, which anyone who's either an attendee or panelist can join, and they can choose between: is paedophilia fairly reported on the mainstream media, between yes, no, and don't know. All I say is keep it friendly, and off you go, guys.
Okay, got the opening statements for and against the case. So over to you guys, and introduce yourself when you start, please.
All right. Hello, this is Kirill. I'm coming to you from Bulgaria, and conspiracy theorists is the most misquoted term as applied to the case against those questioning media, a term that can equally apply to, and often does apply to, the accuser of such a claim. Hence, we would request the deletion of this term in the records of this debate, unless equally applied to both sides. We would not disagree with the statistics of those recorded, although only a fraction of those children in sufferance, many of which are never reported, and many abused and isolated in their own homes. Our case against the media is that the more serious instances of cartel, celebrity, politician, and corporation involvement are not fairly researched and presented in the media, inclusive of publishers, radio and TV, and the film and music industry, almost to the level of encouraging acceptance of pedophilia. Although partially covered by the mainstream media, the accusers bring this debate to the table with evidence to demonstrate that the mainstream media not only give inadequate coverage, but are active in misleading the scale of the truth in pedophilia.
Hi, I'm Jake, and this is my opening statement in support of the media. Conspiracy theorists have created a movement of followers convinced that there is much more to pedophilia than that covered in the media, misguided by anti-celebrity slander. The media have fairly presented confirmed cases of such illegal acts, including more recently the cases of that in the Catholic Church and children's homes, extensively reporting on proven cases of Epstein and Savile. Netflix hosting documentaries exposing such crimes. The media are guided by regulations to control misinformation. In terms of proportional media coverage, this is at the discretion of available trustworthy material. The UK media pride themselves on integrity and fair journalism. Although mainstream media is indeed owned by a few corporations, these are independent organisations competing for current news aligned with their publication. Paedophilia is common throughout the world and less newsworthy due to its widespread practice. With 112,000 missing children in the UK alone in 2019 reported on globalmissingkids.org, it's easy to see only the most newsworthy cases are available.
Award-winning journalist Ben Swan, blacklisted by the media after producing CBS News segment that highlighted and looked into the Pizzagate conspiracy, which links elites to pedophilia. On this segment, Reality Check, Ben Swan goes into the details of the Pizzagate conspiracy. Instead of immediately dismissing it, Swan was forced by WGCL to bring down his Truth in Media website and all of his social media. The segment showed the different aspects of the conspiracy without immediately dismissing it like other news sources, but Swan did not endorse it either, stating there was no physical evidence, but that there were suspicious signs.
And to refute that, Alex Jones apologises to Comet Ping Pong Pizza restaurant owner James Alefantis for publicising Pizzagate claims without significant evidence. We'll play some audio here.
In December of 2016, we disassociated ourselves from the Pizzagate claims and theories, a position we reiterated last month after being contacted by Mr. Alefantis. I made comments about Mr. Alefantis that in hindsight I regret and for which I apologize to him. In December of 2000.
Have we lost sound or are we missing something?
We're waiting for the question to be read out.
Okay, yeah, that was over to you, James. I think it's probably better that you do it than I do as the host. These are questions that have been simulated to come through the from the audience. And the first question, which we've fabricated in this instance, to simulate a question coming in. Yeah.
I can't find them. Where are they?
Should be on the slideshow. So you got the slideshow open? Who's got the?
Yeah, I've got numerous windows open. I've lost track of where I am. I was listening to what was actually being said rather than actually reading what was on the screen. Bear me a sec.
Yeah, no, I'm the same.
There's a learning point. Okay, right. So we've got a couple of questions which have been presented. I've only got in the slideshow. We've got Jenny P from the audience. If the Pizzagate story is fake, then why do mainstream media not allow people to see the whole story? Firing journalists for not covering it in a way that lets the audience judge for themselves. I think that's referring to Ben Swan, is it not?
Yeah.
So I guess that question's for you, Jake, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess. If the Pizzagate story is fake, well, I guess they're just trying to quell the spread of misinformation, is what they say, because if from their perspective, if they saw a conspiracy like Pizzagate growing in popularity, and the shooter that went to the actual Comet Pizza place itself, it's understandable why they would, like sort of censor that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Well, I guess like all these things, is it not for you guys to discuss the problem with things being labelled conspiracy theories or debunked, and if you're for the way the media are going, is the issue really that the media's position is what allows it to say something's being debunked or is a fact?
Wow.
How do we actually make are we encouraging people to interact at this stage?
Yeah, we would be. So ordinarily there would be attendees, and they all have their commenting turned on, so they'd be able to submit a question at this point. So at this point, I would expect to have several attendees' questions, and then I'd obviously be able to put them across.
But you wouldn't want anybody speaking over.
So no, the audience don't get to speak; they just get to chat.
Text you, and you selectively choose what question you put through. I've got a bit of evidence here, which was from Robbie Williams, which was a recording, which I would like to have submitted at some point.
That's the bit that I'm concerned about. Now, look, there might be a perfectly reasonable explanation for that language. Who knows? The fact that we don't know means that nothing has been debunked. Yes, there was no basement in the particular pizza place. That's not the debunking that I want as a civilian, as a human that's going, hey, this bit's really fucking weird. What is that bit? Nobody's been asked, nobody's said, and there has been no answers. But the overarching reporting on this story is debunked fake news. It's not. It's not. The right questions haven't been asked to the right people in the right places. Just as I take my pop star hat off, my celebrity hat off, and just talk as Robert from Stoke-on-Trent, ST6 7HA, opposite the ancient Britain, big up Stoke-on-Trent. Just as that guy for a moment that's watching from the terraces, why aren't those questions being asked? You know?
And when you're trusted...
And also, if...
Well, that's my evidence to support the case that the press are not asking the right questions and are very selective. So I just put that on the table in response to what was tabled before. So I'm one of those people, if you like, that brought a bit of evidence to you and asked you if you wanted to play this link, and you've chose to play the link.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a valid. I think here that's a valid link. So the question is, if there was another question coming in, another question would probably be, why is the mainstream media so quick to dismiss Pizzagate when other allegations get so much more positive publicity? If you take that as a question, actually there's a more serious question about the way news is selected. And I don't know how that affects your individual position. So Jake and Hugh, is that something that either of you would support or dismiss?
Jake?
Well, I'm kind of fighting for the media in this debate, but if I was going to say that Pizzagate, it's where the mainstream media is really sat in terms of its agenda it's trying to push, I guess, and what is popular.
Well, hang on, Jake. Are you suggesting that the media have an agenda?
I guess, yeah. I mean, just from viewing it, I mean, that's the way I think. But
a positive agenda or a negative agenda? I remember the financial crisis back in 2008, and Robert Peston, who was the most hateful man alive. Sorry, did I say that out loud? And all these big red arrows. Do you believe that the big red arrows, in that simplistic term, that were all pointing downwards, had a negative effect on the public, and was that deliberate? Or do you just believe they were honestly presenting the news?
I don't think they're honestly presenting the news. I think there's always some kind of political or social agenda that comes with the media.
But is that just a natural bias? So in the same way that everyone is a product of their environment, are you not biased?
Well, yeah, of course I'm going to be biased, but when it comes down to the media, they're owned by a very small selection of corporations which have full power over these media corporations. So basically, they just feed them what they need to say. So they don't have true freedom because they're owned by these corporations. So if some of the news comes in that is kind of against those corporations or sways them in a bad way, or some kind of, it changes the public perception of these people in a negative way, then it's going to be censored or at least changed in a way that is meant to be, more controlling, more, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Do you have an answer to that?
I'm fully behind what Jake has just said. Without being slanderous towards the media, I think the evidence is stacked up. There's bias. You don't own a newspaper without a purpose of manipulating that newspaper for your own cause. And I think we will prove, as this case proceeds, that the press are guilty as charged, Your Honour.
But would you not say that some of your behaviours in your life are affected by your own bias?
100%.
Okay. So how do other people on the panel feel about that? Kirill, what's your view?
I believe that the type of influence that personal bias has in day-to-day life does not even compare to the type of influence that even a social media influencer or a form of newsletter is going to have on people, and let alone corporations and news broadcasters, because the type of influence that you get with such access to hundreds and thousands, and in cases millions of people, is far greater. It helps people push, as was mentioned, political agendas. It helps them push ethnical beliefs, and it changes the perception of people without, at least not in most cases, but in some cases, without all of the information that is in the field that can be presented. Withholding certain pieces of information is what I would call a white lie. Like, you're not necessarily trying to deceive people, but withholding certain pieces of information can definitely change the way people see things. And
okay, so in the UK, as an example, so if you take the UK, a lot of the media organisations pin their political beliefs to the mast. Obviously, if you use the papers as an example, you have the Telegraph, which is clearly right-wing, Express is right-wing, the Mirror is Labour, the Observer's Labour, the Independent, who knows, could be anything on any particular day. The Guardian is quite left-wing. Are you honestly saying that people don't have a choice whether they listen to it and choosing what they listen to?
Well, of course they do, but what I was trying to say is that the scale at which some people can influence others' perception at this level of, how do I call it, like power, when you're a huge corporation, when your outreach goes beyond not just the borders of your country, but perhaps sometimes even multiple continents, you have the chance to plant seeds of ideas that people might not necessarily realize they slowly subscribe to.
But Kirill, come on, at the end of the day, all these organisations have thousands of employees. Are you seriously suggesting you could convince all of the employees of these organisations to
you can't? And
the owner's position?
Ben Swan, from the first example we gave from the Pizzagate case, he was not easily convinced to lay low and keep his mouth shut. He probably went out of his way, without the knowledge of his superiors, that he eventually got to a point where his actions were deemed inappropriate, and therefore got him fired, and therefore got him to lose all of his social media platform influence due to a single segment of 5 minutes. So I do believe they have ways of twisting things, and I don't believe that they do it with all types of news. I just believe that, as was mentioned, perhaps there are certain agendas.
Let's approach this from a different thing. We've got, I think Hugh might have some more evidence around the subject tonight, which is child abuse and paedophilia. There's some allegations that are being made which look pretty serious. Hugh, what are those?
No, they're not that serious, because all I'm saying is that the press, we're accusing the press of being inadequate, of being biased, of not covering truthfully, and with their own personal agenda, as my good honourable colleague Jake pointed out earlier. There is a bias in the press, and they're safeguarding their own commercial interests. You don't own a newspaper without it working it for yourself, and they own it for their own financial purposes. They're corporations by nature and by practice.
But I think in the evidence that was submitted, you had a woman in Australia called Fiona Barrett who made various claims. Were these not discussed in the media?
Yeah, they were. They were indeed. They were, and the case was dismissed supposedly on the lack of the further investigation was dismissed on the basis of no case to answer, and that wasn't a founded conclusion at all. And you have to ask the influences, who was involved, who was incriminated, and why the investigation wasn't the seizure of the investigation was not challenged by the media, because there was no logic for curtailing that investigation. So I question the media motives and the influence of the media in the political circles.
I think we need to look at this like in a more I don't know how to say it, but I feel like the whole idea of these pedo rings and filthy stuff like this is that the media, yeah, it will produce reports on these specific situations because they have to, because it's news. But in terms of like general concepts, if you go up to most people and talk about global pedo rings, they'll think you're a fringe nutter, and this is reflected in the mainstream media's like portrayal of people who believe this stuff. You go on Google and type in elite pedophile ring, and the first thing that's going to come up is QAnon, Donald Trump, right-wing supporters believe stupid Pizzagate conspiracy theories. It doesn't give you the news straight up. It gives you propaganda to sell you against these things, because let's think about it, the media, they're just there to gain something, and you could say, oh, it's just to gain money, but money doesn't really matter to the people who own.
Yeah,
I mean,
you can't say that with the BBC. The BBC doesn't get paid.
Yeah, that's what I was about to get into, is that money doesn't really matter that much in terms of these corporations. What's really about is control. And how do you get control? You set people against each other rather than the people who are the ones committing crimes against their own people. The people in power.
Yeah, jolly good. Yes, I'm.
Instead, we're distracted by ourselves, by right wing Donald Trump bad, oh Hillary Clinton bad. That's what we're distracted with. Instead of questioning these people.
Hillary Clinton is probably bad.
Well, yeah, they're all pretty bad, but we're too distracted. The whole, it's not just the specific people that are bad. It's the whole
Jake,
global
why do you
concept.
have so much? Why do you have so much? What's the word?
Passion.
Little faith in human nature to be able to distinguish between what is real and what is not, and the ability of people's free will to turn off.
Because we live in a world that isn't real anymore in terms of what we perceive. We're born.
There's a lot of science around that.
I'm not talking as in like physically. I'm talking in terms of people's outlook. When people are born into this world, they're the first thing they're done is push through the classic cycle of, get them on this, give them a phone, read this information. They're conditioned to believe certain things. Now these things have just been told to us throughout the years, but these aren't truths. These are just what we're told to believe. So our belief system is. But
once again, Jake, you've got to be careful here. You're straying away from what you can prove is a fact. At the end of the day, you are a product of your environment. If you believe the nature-nurture approach, so that's probably pushing a little bit too far away. I think you need to your perception of what your life is your perception.
Yeah.
Surely people can decide what they believe in.
Well, that's quite hard.
Everyone's being brainwashed from birth.
It's not kind of. You follow a mainstream media unless you choose to stray off the path yourself. And most people won't choose this. They'll just choose to swallow what they're given, which is the news. And the news is going to have a certain bias, so that's obviously going to bake into their way of thinking and their way of being. So that way they're going to be turned into puppets of that belief. So they're going to continually, it's like setting the people against each other, distract them with something.
Okay, so let's get some other views on this. So, Joe, what's your view coming from the Southern Hemisphere?
Yeah, so it is, in this case, with pedophilia, I mean, I'm going to be relevant, my points will be relevant to that, is that if it's the case that there are a few organizations controlling the media, my question would be, in the case of pedophilia, what are their interests? Why would they protect themselves in this case? So yes, sure. In certain cases, they protect themselves if their own interest is at heart, financially or whatever the case may be. But how relevant is that to pedophilia?
I want to say a few words.
Absolutely, Adi.
Because I think because this is very delicate matter, the pedophilia. What is written here is a person must be at least 16 years old and at least 5 years older than the child for the attraction to be diagnosed as pedophilia. So pedophilia is actually psychiatric disorder, and that is a very delicate matter, and probably many of the people working in the media are following laws, and they're not probably allowed to expose these people who are involved in such, let's say, in such relations. Like
so,
children.
Are you suggesting that because, say, paedophilia is defined as a mental illness, that if there's a law protecting people who have mental illnesses,
yes,
that
definitely.
they are then by de facto protected by that process?
Absolutely, yes. And probably this is one of the reasons that the media as a whole does not expose these relations. And then another thing is pedophilia was formally recognized and named as illness in the late 19th century. So it's been quite a while since that illness is known to the public as illness. And there is no though.
You said. So if you had, are we seriously suggesting though that if the official diagnosis is that someone who is sort of, I don't know, 5 years older than a 16-year-old, that they would be a paedophile when everyone matures at that time of their life at a different rate? So, I don't know, if you have a 16-year-old boy and a 15-year-old girl, technically she's under the age of consent. Does that mean that that would be paedophilia? The eyes of the law.
No, that will be molesting, or whatever the term is for that. That is not still
even though
recognized and it's not proved as illness.
Okay.
Can I just step in? I don't think the people...
I think Jake here might have the best perspective on this, as he's the closest to that age possible.
Well, I think this kind of goes off what we're talking about, though. If we're talking about like elite paedophile rings, I don't think these people are psychologically. This isn't a psychological illness for them. This is a control thing. They do it because they're above the law.
I don't necessarily think there's any evidence of that. Where's the evidence of this is them psychologically controlling?
Because look at Epstein and Prince Andrew. Prince Andrew was he was made to It's what they say in the media.
I would suggest as this is being broadcast, be careful what you allege about Prince Andrew. To be, before we go to a break.
Prince Andrew allegedly had intercourse with minors, and Jeffrey Epstein knew this. Everyone who was allegedly part of Epstein's whole crew was doing it because they could do it because they were above the law. These were powerful people. These are the ones who funded the police, funded the political organizations. So they could do this. It's for their own circle to gather dirt on each other. So that.
But I believe just before we go to the break, I believe the issue with Prince Andrew, the only accuser is a girl who was 17 at the time, which in UK would be considered over the age of consent. In America, he didn't get accused of paedophilia. He got accused of, I believe, statutory rape, which is because she was under 18, because the age of consent in America is 18.
Well, if you look at the evidence, what's her name? Virginia Roberts. She said, sure, she was the one who was stating that Prince Andrew had sex with her, but she also said that there were also 8 other young girls who were under the age of 18. Now, to what degree of under the age of 18, we don't know, but there was multiple.
That's just, this is where I think the difference, where this gets messy at this point, Jakey, I'm sure you'll understand, is that in different countries, that would be viewed differently.
Yeah.
There are countries in the world, or even states in America, where the age of consent is actually 13.
Mm.
So are we saying that those are those wrong? Is that paedophilia? Does that fit the argument?
It's not exactly paedophilia, but it's definitely sexual deviancy in a way that's just kind of wrong, in a way that I think most people can agree with. I mean,
Right,
especially with someone.
I think
the
that's
age of Prince
I think that's a good point to break on the word of sexual deviance. I believe we've got a song coming, which is being queued up, I believe.
Yeah, Hugh is playing that. I don't see Hugh in this group.
He's disappeared. I've just noticed.
What
How did we
happened
not
to
notice that Hugh had disappeared?
I think we were just absorbed in all of the
Where's
conversation.
Hugh?
No one paid
Does he even
attention.
know he's off the group? Let's see.
Just disappeared.
Let's just see if he knows that he's off the group. I'm just sending him a. You Hoogie, where are you? Maybe he went to get a double Bacardi and Coke or something.
Eventually. So what happens next?
We were going to go on a break, and Hugh was going to play a tune of some sort.
Yeah, there's some tune.
So what do we do now while we wait?
All right, so I don't know. I can play a tune.
Jake, can you sing a song?
I'll just DJ a tune from this side.
Go on, Jake. Beatbox. That'll be interesting.
This is gonna be terrible. All right. Oh nah, I'm not doing that. I'm sorry.
Go on.
And when I start doing it, I'll just cringe. I can't even think about doing it. All right, you know what? Go on.
We've all got skills.
You want a crunchy beatbox? You want a crazy one? You want
a crazy one? Go on.
All right, so mad time signatures and everything. All right. Nah, I opt out. I'm good. You do it first.
Oh no, I'm too old.
It's not good when you put it on the spot. Nah, but Joe, you put a track on. I'm good. I'm not beatboxing. It just feels bad when you start it. It's cool. I do it to myself a lot though. All right, you know what? I'll do it. All right. There you go. A little bit of light drum and bass kind of hip hop vibe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Some interesting.
How do we choose?
This long train running by the Doobie Brothers coming up.
Nice.
I have sent Hugh I've sent him the invite link to try and get him back in. In case he's locked out.
Is the song playing now?
So let's see, has he responded? So we're not being broadcast at the moment.
Alright, cool.
So just the song is getting broadcast.
Wait.
We don't have any audience currently, so...
No, we've got... well, there are. Actually, there are 3 listeners.
Audience within the Zoom element.
No, we got 3 listeners on radio.
Wait, is it just on kindasound.org that you can just listen to it? Because I might send a few buddies an invite.
Sorry, I can't hear. I've got the song on my one ear. Sorry, what were you saying?
Is it just on kindasound.org where it's being broadcasted right now?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Right.
Well, the player is on kindasound.org, yeah.
Yeah, I might send a few. Oh yeah, I hear it.
I just saw Yeah, you know what? Britain just lit up when you started playing that because I'm looking at the world map. I've got two people in South Africa listening to it,
Or you
and
might
then
get.
as you put it on that side, Great Britain lit up.
I'm
One more.
inviting another person to have a listen.
You'd be the only one in the entire England. There you go, lighting up the United Kingdom.
That's my buddy. He is now listening.
But the jackpot question is, where's Hugh?
What's going on with you?
He just wrote on Telegram that he cannot get back in.
I've resent him an invite, so he needs to click on that one. I've replied to him.
Brad says, I have a question, but not allowed in.
I don't think Brad was given an invite at the outset, which is the reason when I was asking for emails. And once it's started, you can't join as an audience member.
Is it?
Yeah.
Then the doors are closed, eh?
Yeah. And I did that deliberately so we weren't having to manage loads of people.
Yeah.
So
will you be able to get back in now?
He should be, because I've sent him the invite to get back in.
But Brad won't be able to come in as a newcomer.
Hang on.
So yeah, we got 20 seconds, 10, 15 seconds back to broadcasting.
Oh, excuse me.
Who was that?
Excuse me.
Dear, oh dear.
Okay, so we are back live again. Back live on BateBox this evening. James Foster, our host, is just sorting out a few things. We lost Horizontal Hoogie. He's gone out the webinar for some reason. Brad Lean is trying to get in, but unfortunately we can't let it in because once the doors are closed, you cannot come in. That's just the way it's been set up. Sorry, Brad, if you're listening on the radio. But we are a good 40 minutes into the show already and had various inputs from both sides, so and some interesting conversations about it. And we're about to proceed if we can get Hugh back in into the bedroom, into the webinar. So if you are listening, you're welcome to for the next round. Put your name up and sign up. I think that's on BateBox. James.
Hugh's back in.
Oh, there we go. That's a familiar face.
Hi.
Hugh, we just listened to, just played a song. We had a break and we back in on air. We got a few listeners. There are people in the UK, there are people in South Africa listening.
Joe and Jake.
Yeah, you wouldn't believe what just happened on my computer.
It wasn't charged, so the battery died, or what?
No, it's just a funny dance routine, my cursor. It's a little, I was almost to music. No control, but I just did a little circle.
His sound's gone again.
He's been hacked by the Illuminati.
It's the CIA. Yep, even better, the Illuminati.
The alarm bell should go off because he's got an Apple. I thought they never got hacked or never got viruses.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm also on the Mac.
Are we back on the show?
We are back on the show.
Yes, we are back on the show.
Welcome, Tiny Sound listeners.
Yeah, we got one listener in South Africa and one listener in the UK.
Well, I've probably been the one in the UK. I've come in on the radio. I thought I couldn't get on my computer. I've come in on James's link, which he sent to Brad, to come in as a audience.
No. That was your link for you to get in.
Oh, okay, but I filled in the form. My name.
Okay, yeah. It's just because the only way to send you a new link is to invite you as a fresh.
So is that email link only usable once that you sent?
Probably, yeah.
Right. Okay, no one else has had any problems.
Yeah, probably get another one.
Anyway, should we get back on with the debate?
Yes, good thinking.
Bear with me a minute. I'm just.
Screw the bastard. Oh.
We left off on Prince Andrew and why they do it. And I was saying how it's a power thing.
But what power do they gain from it, Jake? You've made this allegation a couple of times. What does Prince Andrew get out of it compared to the risk of being caught?
I don't think he means that they gain power out of it. I just think that it's more like a power play.
Yeah.
You get more of a thrill out of dominating someone that can't even fight back. And I'm not saying that they necessarily actually do it, but if they did, who else would have more power than world leaders and people in a position of, for example, Prince Andrew? Like, you just don't get any more power regardless of your position. And to try to express that power is, I mean, probably in some cases in horrible ways, but it's the only thing that they could probably gain out of it, just the power play.
Yeah, it's like to exercise what they can do just because they can, and most people can't, but they can get away with it. And even if they are kind of leaked to the public, there's alleged to be much more of them.
Mr. Host, are we not digressing a little bit here?
I was just thinking that, but I was just interested to see where the thought process, basically because Mr. Williams obviously turned around and said that Prince Andrew, in this instance, would gain power from it.
I didn't mean gain power. I meant as in like the person.
Circumstance would suggest that he has been extricated from the royal family to a greater or lesser extent and been kind of left out in the cold.
And that's just
I think it's quite jolly. It's very jolly that the prosecution counsel and the defence counsel are fraternising together. That's very, very good, fellows. But at the end of the day, are the press, is the media, are they biased?
Hugh, wind it in. I think that we're allowed to give a certain amount of latitude. I think the question is, if the question is the paedophilia and child abuse and any of those things objectively reported, the answer from any of the panelists would be what?
Yes.
Is it being objectively reported?
Well, can I just come back to what you were discussing, because I would not normally have this view, but you've got to bear in mind that Princess Andrew put himself in front of a television interviewer, which suggests impartiality, and he was degraded as a result of that interview, and removed from his duties as a result of that interview. Now that is very reassuring to know that the press, the mainstream media, grilled him and exposed him, or not exposed his truth, I don't believe, but exposed enough of him to have him removed and degraded almost. So,
but you could also view this the other way around, in the most recent, slightly different subject. And if you're going to take that point of view, Hugh, is that in the press currently there's issues around Princess Diana's interview with the BBC back in the day, and that basically the now accusations which caused absolute outrage within the country and within an animosity towards the Queen is now being flipped on its head as the BBC deliberately set up Diana. So is that situation like a journalist pushing his luck to get a story? Is that right?
I don't know.
Are they not two sides of the same coin, is the point?
Can't comment on that. I don't know any. Sadly enough, I'm not very well qualified to comment on this matter because I don't listen to mainstream media. I try to avoid it, but
Yeah.
We have some other
Similar.
questions. There's more evidence, though.
Yeah, we do.
Quite a lot of evidence.
I've just lost my position in the list of evidence. One of the questions we've got here is, why do allegations such as this cause such volatile reactions towards an alleged victim, with so much ridiculing and defamation by the press?
Because when I feel like when other people come out with allegations, yeah, sure, there is some division in the press of it. You know, there's going to be a bit of division, but usually they're quite sympathetic. But whenever anyone speaks out against the elite global paedophile network, they're almost always like put into a group of, oh, you're just conspiracy, you're just trying to start things, you know what I mean? And the police, in instances that we've showcased in the evidence here, don't even look into it, because they say, oh, there's not enough evidence, when there are claims by the people who the victims, and there's been so many victims, that there is enough evidence to, you know, spark an investigation. It's just there's something going on to that which the authorities are just not letting them get on with it, and they're just not letting them investigate it properly.
Those most complicit Jakes seem to have an accident or a suicide.
That's something else we can get into. Is the amount of
people have accidents.
The amount of suspicious deaths. No, there is. No joke. There's a lot of really suspicious looking deaths of people who have come out against elite global pedophilia. People in the industry as well, Hollywood celebrities, models, you know, ex-police officers who have, you know, they are reputable people, and they've come to expose these things, and yet they're still put on the fringe. These things aren't put in the mainstream media, and then they just die from a really suspicious death, and there's no one talking about it. Look into it.
One of those conspiracies around that, I think the one I remember is Cilla Black. There's a lot of allegations around how Cilla Black fell over in a garden and killed herself. Is that the type of event that you're talking about?
Yeah, we've got two examples of it right here. We've got what's her name? We've got
maybe you should present those examples.
Yeah.
If you've got examples.
Sure. Natasha Jate. I don't know how that's exactly you say the last name, but she was a model. She was part of Big Brother in like Spain. She was a big Spanish celebrity, but then she came forward saying that she had evidence of a high level paedophile ring, with VIPs, politicians, movie stars, all that kind of stuff. But coming out with these allegations, she got like barraged with attacks, like death threats and all that stuff. And then a month later, she was found dead in a nightclub. And then she even tweeted on Twitter, warning, I am not going to commit suicide. I am not going to take too much cocaine and drown in a bath or shoot myself. So if this happens, it wasn't me. Save this tweet. She went to, her brother said she didn't take any drugs because a doctor wouldn't let her, because it would combine with the medication she was on at the moment. And what happens? She dies in a nightclub with cocaine residue in her nostrils, LSD in her system, liquor all in her, and yet, yeah. And the police, they didn't rule out foul play, but they said the body showed no signs of violence.
Here.
Now that is very suspicious if you ask me. There's another one as well, if you'll let me get into it.
Give us another.
Mark Minnie. Now this is an author. He was in South Africa, and he created a book called The Lost Boys of Bird Island, and him and his friends were both ex-police officers who were like investigative journalists now, and they wanted to expose a government community that took children to Bird Island, where they were abused and possibly murdered. And then after publishing the book, I think it was like a month later, I don't know, he's found shot dead, and people said, the government said, or whatever the media said, he was commit suicide, but it wasn't his own gun. Yeah, it wasn't his gun. He died really close to when that book came out. I think he told multiple people that he wasn't going to kill himself.
He did.
Yeah.
And there's others as well, Jake.
Yeah.
There's quite a catalogue of people.
I was going to add some more, but I didn't get time to. There was another guy who was on Breaking Bad who died suspiciously. I think, what's his name? That celebrity chef, and Anthony Bourdain. I haven't really looked into that much, but I've heard something happened there. It's just, when you say this kind of stuff, you're instantly said, oh, you're crazy, there's no way he got killed by the government. But there's just such a pattern.
There is the possibility that there could be it could be coincidental.
Yeah, of course, there's always the possibility, but you have to view the patterns here. It's like organised crime, which is basically what the government could do if they wanted to, because, you know, they have power to do that. They work above the law, as long as we don't know. As long as they mislead us enough.
We've now got Brad has joined us in the audience. She'd like to add something. I'll let her sort of speak rather than type her answer. I'll just let her in. Oh, hang on. Hang on a second. It's not coming. What's going on here? Let me try a different way. There you go, Brad. You're live on air. You might want to unmute your microphone before you start.
Is he
Brad?
Hi, James.
Hi,
Hello.
Brad.
Hello. I'm not sure if you can hear me.
We can hear you.
Oh, wonderful. Hi. I've been listening to the debate, and I don't know, maybe because I had the radio open on my phone, it was a little bit chaotic because I had different types of talks on the same type of second, and it was a bit confusing. And I'm listening, and I was like, I have questions, but I will keep my questions, and then I will just wait for a little while because I want to hear what else you guys have as pro and against for the debate of the topic tonight.
Okay, so Brad, so what's your first question for the team?
Okay. Wait.
Sod's law.
Good
Brad,
question.
you've immediately flaked out. Obviously, the power or something's gone
I
off.
actually typed my question.
Oh, here you go. You can, of course, type it on the
to the WhatsApp group
panel if you like.
And my I'm not sure who's sorry. I'm in a little corner in a very bad storm for the past 2 days. So I'm in the only little corner of my dad's house with a decent type of connection.
That's all right.
And
Don't
my
worry.
first
You
question was...
You can always type the question if you want, if that's easier.
I did.
All I got was I really
it-
want to say something. I didn't actually get any other questions.
Oh, okay, maybe. Because I sent it to the WhatsApp group, and my question was, do the panel or speakers consider themselves to be activists of truth, or rather comfortable, opinionated desk jockeys? I know that's a little bit brutal,
Brad,
but
that is
I wanted
so
to know.
hard. I couldn't possibly, that is an interesting question. So the first person who should probably come in on that is you.
Yeah. Go on,
I
Hugh.
don't want to ask you that question.
Well, I've just asked you that question. So Hugh, come on.
What is the question? I'm doing my research here because I wanted to pick up on.
Were you actually not listening to Brad's question?
I'm doing my research.
Right. So Hugh, the question was, Brad, correct me if I'm wrong, the question was, are you naturally interested in this, or are you just a kind of desk jockey who's here to put across your opinion?
Interested in this debate about the biased media? Is this, was that what we're talking about? My particular view about
or
this
are you just an opinionated observer?
I'm definitely opinionated, without a doubt. I wouldn't say I was just an observer. I'm very opinionated about this debate, and I have my views about it. So I'm biased in my views, and I think they're substantiated with my good honourable colleague Jake there. I think it's a very good cause for our case tonight, and I hope everybody that's voting will vote in the favour of condemning the press for being corrupt and biased. So, is that an answer to your question, host?
Yeah, I think so. What about you, Kirill? Where's your position on this?
Well, I am definitely an advocate for truth. I try to present all of the data that's usually out there. So I try not to misinform people when I converse. But in this particular case, I do believe I am expressing some personal bias. So I guess I try to subscribe to both types of person. Like I try to be mostly honest, but currently not entirely truthful and not entirely factual.
Okay, that's an interesting answer. And Jake, have you got any input on this?
Oh, well, my perception of the world has definitely been swayed in a certain way, but that's only because, you know, how I've started to see things and how I seriously don't believe things that the media say, because at the end of the day, what can you really believe besides your own intuitions? And from what I've been told and what I've seen and researched throughout the years I've been alive, and I've been interested in the truth.
Well, that's about 5 minutes, Jake. So
no, I've been very interested in this stuff for a while, and I think it's definitely. I'm kind of straying from the question here. What's the question? Am I an activist or am I a biased disc jockey? I would say I'm an activist in the way that I am always striving for the complete truth and always questioning everything that I'm told to believe.
Brilliant.
And through activism, I guess telling people that you know, but not also going crazy on them, just, you know, introducing it to them in a way that they can digest. Is
so you're activist
somewhat
rather than evangelist. Right?
Yeah, it's a form of activism because
Okay,
you set people on the peaceful path.
Well, we'll have to hold it there, Jake, because otherwise we're going to run out of time.
Okay.
Brad, does that answer your question?
It does, to an extent, it does.
Good.
But your answers actually made me think of another question, but I think I will just leave that.
For any more questions, because otherwise we're not going to get through the volume of evidence that Hugh has been storing up for us.
Okay.
So I'll hand back to Hugh.
It's fine.
Here is your next batch of evidence for and against.
Yeah, so I think we've won the case with my good honourable colleague Jake there, and the case of these the paedophilia movement. And I was going to
Hugh, unfortunately, it's the host job to decide what you've won. And I've asked you for more evidence, and you've not provided it. Does that mean that you don't have any more evidence?
I'll pass over to my good colleague, my good honourable colleague Jake, to produce that evidence.
You want some more evidence, or do you want evidence of the paedophiles in the media?
Yeah, maybe what we need to do is we need to move on to some tangible people who have maybe made some allegations. Obviously, we've heard from Robbie Williams in this. We've heard about allegations against individuals, but I don't think we've heard from some of those people who have maybe made allegations. Obviously, I think 2 people have made allegations and both of them are dead. So maybe we can deal with the people who aren't dead, who haven't met a horrible death. Corey
Feldman is one of them. He's an actor in Hollywood, and he said ever since he was like a child actor, he said the biggest problem in Hollywood is pedophilia. He said this over and over again, and he's constantly saying it. He's constantly saying it to the media, and he's not really that publicized. Of course, the media will cover them, but still, the idea of a Hollywood global paedophile ring is still looked upon. It's still a fringe idea in the eyes of many, even though, with the evidence of Harvey Weinstein, even though, I know it wasn't paedophilia, but it's still sexual deviancy, isn't it? And, there's been history of weird stuff going on in Hollywood, especially just to get the job, you have to do some filthy things.
What are you talking about? Casting couch?
Yeah,
casting couch is a phenomenon that came from the film industry.
Yeah, because it's.
And I think you'll find it also maybe started in the UK.
There you go. Well, whatever's happening over the Hollywood is that, well, you could say, oh, Hollywood elites and the government elites are completely different. No, they're not. They're part of the same thing, because the Hollywood.
But the elites went after Harvey Weinberg. So why Weinstein, whatever his name is? Why have they not gone after these other deviants, to use your word.
Why haven't they? I guess they just haven't found a reason to yet, because there's no reason to. They've thrown a few people to the sharks, but I think the main idea of it is kept in secret. And to get back onto it, Corey Feldman, he's constantly said that paedophilia is a massive thing in Hollywood. He said that him and his other friends, when they were kids, got raped over and over again. He apparently got stabbed. It's a bit. Sorry, I can't really make out what you're saying there. It's a bit.
Brad, I'll have to mute you because it's breaking up the thing. But so just let me, Jake, give me another one that might be there. Corey Feldman. You got Steve. This other guy, Steve. I can't really pronounce his last name. Steve Piegzenik. He's a doctor. He's a psychology guy, but he was a former United States Department of State official, and he's a well-renowned guy, and he's the one who's come out against the. He's completely disavowed the Clinton Foundation, the Democrats, because he feels there is a true agenda coming across, and he's made multiple YouTube videos exposing Bill Clinton, Epstein's journeys, adventures together on the jet, stuff like that. He's exposed all this stuff. He's saying that another some kind of revolution is coming, and that this is all tied in. All the paedophilia stuff. It's gonna I don't know. It's gonna explode. It's gonna erupt at some point. And this is not a crazy fringe person. This is a former United States Department of State official. This is a top level intelligence community member. We can apply that same logic to other subjects. I think you'll find that I often use this as an example in discussions like this, that the former defense minister of Canada came out and said that both the Russian and American governments and most governments on the UK, on the world rather, including the UK, are in active contact with extraterrestrials.
Yeah.
Does that mean because of his previous position he couldn't now be mad?
Well, I mean, you could at least hear him out. This is a person who had a big part in the government. So I don't think they're just going to say that stuff willy-nilly. Yeah, sure, they could be mad, but it's got to be some kind of fact behind this madness in a way, if they were at some point a government official.
Because I think one of the people you mentioned in some evidence that you submitted was Jenna Jameson, who's actually a porn star who was complaining about sex.
Yeah, and you could say, oh yeah, what's a porn star to speak on this kind of stuff? But she said herself that her career, she was trafficked into it, and now she's really disavowing it and saying that porn is just it's a horrible thing. It creates trafficking. She's exposing elite pedophile rings online. And and of course she's going to be disavowed. Everyone's going, oh, she's a porn star. What's she got to say? Well, she was in the industry of sleaziness and sex. I mean, she's probably seen something like this. If she's speaking out about it, she's probably seen something. You know what I mean? I think there's something behind it.
The alternative is that she's willing to do what she did for money before. What's to say that she's not just been paid to do it?
Paid to
create a layer of disinformation.
Well, that could definitely be a possibility, but right now I can't see the idea, the reason for having this whole Hollywood and elite paedophile thing be a red herring, unless it's to distract from a greater conspiracy, but that's going in deep.
And Hugh, do you buy what Jake's saying?
I think
No.
Yeah, I think there's lots of factual support behind exactly what Jake says. I mean, there's a system, and I think you well know that there's a satanic group of people behind Hollywood. Call it a closed order, call it the elite, call it the New World Order, the cabal, and they have symbols, and they're well documented symbols throughout the world, and their true coverage is embedded by these symbols, and those symbols
like the red shoes.
Yeah, thank you.
The white rabbit.
They're all there.
Sorry.
They're in the buildings, they're in the films, they're in the literature. They're the symbols to mark there. It's the mark of the beast, as they say. It's there. The numbers are there all the time. There's it's circumstantial. The numbers, the symbols are there, and they're embedded, and they have a declared policy of making it visible. Everything they do, it's not hidden. It's all there, and the evidence is there. And it's almost a temptation to those few that dare challenge the evidence, that lose their lives through a ritual process of death. And there's various deaths. There's simulations in these assassinations, and there's no evidence, but there are similarities. And but there is enough evidence in the symbols, and that can be traced globally. These symbols, right down to the dollar banknote. You know, those symbols are in there. There's connections in those symbols. The press never report on these symbols.
We're talking about the dollar banknote is like a historical instrument. It basically comes about. It looks like it does because of the Declaration of Independence. Is that not enough of a symbol?
No, I'm saying that there's the Cabal symbols and the pyramids, and they're all symbolic to the closed order. They're all symbolic, whether you call them the Masons or whether you call them the Cabal. They're all symbolic.
But Hugh, you're getting off the subject.
No, not at all, Mr. Host.
Saying that child abuse is central to allegations about the Illuminati, the Catholic Church, the whoever you want to call them.
If the press, let's go back to the press. If the press wanted to be neutral and wanted to be investigative, it's very simplistic. These symbols are everywhere. The correlation, the hand signals that they give each other, they're all there. They don't hide those.
Well, they don't hide those. The hand signals.
Can I weigh in there? Can I please weigh in here?
Sorry, Brad, I didn't hear what you said.
Oh, I would like to weigh in on that point.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, so I know that we are presenting evidence against and we are presenting evidence for. So my question is, like, if we are talking about topics like this specific topic, and we are only talking about what's happening on international level, and most importantly, what's happening in Hollywood, that is not where pedophilia started. That is just a portion of the badness that has been brought to light. What about the pedophilia, sex trafficking, sexual abuse, everything that's happened on a more local ground? Because we know Hollywood is trying to cover their tracks and protecting it, like this Einstein, all of these people, they are trying to say, okay, Bill Gates has never visited the sex island. Prince Alfred has never been on this island. So we know that we are up against people denying the fact that they are part of something so disgraceful. But if we think about it and we want to talk about something that is actually happening, so why not go more domestic? Why not go more local, where you can see and you know these are people that is actually going through this? Because now we are asking questions that against people that has the finances and the resources that can completely deny it. So now you are faced with a brick wall, knowing that your questions are not meaning anything to them because they have a mountain of lawyers that can just say, well, they were not there, they never did it. So our question is actually null and void because it doesn't bother them, it will not do any damage. So the message I am thinking is, like, we are trying to educate people and make them realize that saving our children and pedophilia is a real thing. So there's evidence that's more to the ground. You have artists trying to tell the world that Hollywood is not everything that it's got up to be. And I mean, I'm a child and I'm a modern child. And if you listen to the one song by Justin Bieber, Yummy, Yummy, it's a stupid title. But if you look at it and you listen to the lyrics, then you can see him not trying to ruin his own career, is him telling every young aspirational child wanting to be in the movie and music industry that Hollywood is incestuous pool of
You have to be
cannibalism,
careful,
and they will devour your thing. And I have
Okay.
evidence of that, and I've sent it through. But anyway,
But thank you for that, Brad. I think
got carried away.
it's a valid,
Sorry.
I think it's a valid point. But we strayed a little bit away from the question, which is as simple as is it presented in a objective way? So as we round up the debate tonight, maybe each one of you can have one last submission on whether it's objectively reported and objectively assessed. Jake, do you want to go first?
Yeah, it's not objectively assessed. I don't think it is.
Joe?
It is a
Yeah, sorry, there we go. Yeah, I think it is.
You caught him out there.
Yeah, I'm having dinner in between. Is it objectively reported? So your question is, at the end of the day, is it objectively reported? Do I think it is objectively reported, or are you asking if I feel based on what was presented tonight, whether it was objectively?
What is your overall view? Is it objectively reported or not?
My overall view based on what? On the comments tonight, or my personal view?
Tonight and what you believe to be true.
It's so tough. It's so tough when you don't watch the mainstream media. You know.
What's your view? Just give me your view.
My view is that, based on the nature of the beast, based on the nature of the lust for money, the nature of sex, the nature of greed, the nature of the everlasting, or I shouldn't say everlasting, but based on the evil that's very much at play at the day, I would say I don't think that the media is objectively reporting and truthfully reporting on the matter.
Cyril?
Well, I believe that this matter is quite nuanced, as most things are, but I will go back to what I said earlier, and it is that they might present a fraction of the details as they are truly, and withhold information with a certain purpose, because if you're not given the full information of the events that are currently going on, you will not have the accurate idea. And I do believe that they withhold certain information on accounts of pedophilia just for someone's personal interest, regardless of whether it is politicians, regardless of whether it is just businessmen. It's just some form of power being abused to a point where information is misleading to the public.
Okay. Hugh?
Yeah, I think the evidence is too strong not to believe that corporations and the employees of these corporations are guilty of concealment, and obviously the press are not going to expose their own people and break down their own corporations by exposing it. So I have no doubt at all that they are participative in corrupt media coverage of paedophilia.
Adi?
Sorry. I think the media gives the people exactly the amount of information they are allowed to give. So looking from this side, I think, yes, they do inform objectively, protecting themselves as well.
Okay. And Brad, final word?
I believe that the media, especially in my country, they do not even attempt to broadcast or inform people about what is happening on a more domesticated level. They try and divert what is actually happening in our country, and they are letting our children suffer. And I can say this firsthand because I'm living with the person that has happened to, and it is absolutely shameful that nothing is said on every single news broadcast in this country. It is about COVID only, and about all of these other mediocre things, but nothing about the suffering of our children. And I feel the media feels like if they can secure themselves and they can secure their little safety spot in their mortgage and their money, they don't have to care about the country and what is going to build the country. So I have no faith in the media because I feel like they are lying. So sorry, that's just my that's just my thing.
Brilliant.
Could I just expand on my point just a little bit? I won't be too long.
No, we're not allowed any more. We're already 15 minutes over time, and we allocated an hour for this. So it's pretty much time for summing up and kind of what's been discussed. So in overall summary, we've started off with someone for, someone against, and some people who are reasonable observers. Jake came out of the box first and was putting across that the media have a job to do, and they walk a tight line between what they're legally able to do and what is. I think we might have lost Jake. No, we're moving around in the screen, and what they can present. We were given some evidence by Hugh, who very much was putting across the position of conspiracy not being a conspiracy. A conspiracy is very much just someone's point of view, and if it's unpalatable, then that gets put across as a conspiracy. Those two arguments very much joined Jake and Hugh together. They sort of came through a filter to a point. They then went on to discuss, and we've had various discussions about how the press have reacted to various individuals, including Robbie Williams, who they didn't react to at all. Jenna Jameson, who they just assumed that because she was a porn star, therefore no one did anything about it. And then obviously Corey Feldman, where there's been a fairly well documented allegations and counter allegations between the LAPD and himself, and I think it was his brother or his someone he's related to. Overall, I think although the debate actually strayed into other realms of the media, I think I'd have to say, on the basis of the evidence we've got now, is that if we had to look realistically at the question, now, okay, we don't have a very big audience tonight, but it started with a question: is paedophilia fairly reported by mainstream media? Yes, no, or don't know. We only actually had one vote on that, so it was no, and it was 100% no. With an audience, we might have ended up with a live audience. We might have ended up with a few more, but obviously this is a test debate, and I would say the results are fairly much strong in that the media, not just in paedophilia, are biased either subconsciously or because of corporate pressure to actually report news as they see fit, as opposed to presenting the news in an objective, unbiased way. So I think that's where we come out at. Obviously, this is now going to go out on YouTube. We will get various comments and bits and pieces. So if you are watching this on YouTube or listening to this on YouTube as a podcast or as a podcast elsewhere, we'd be really interested to see your comments and to the individuals who have been involved. And lastly, I'd just like to say thank everyone on the panel for your efforts in terms of producing evidence, your honesty and straightforwardness, and your politeness to each other.
Here. Thank you. And special thanks to you, host. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. I think we've got some music to play out with, and Joe might want to tell us what that is, because I don't know what it is.